Welcome to Metropolitan AME Zion Church, the oldest African-American congregation in Jersey City. We are here this afternoon to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's visit here on March 27, 1968. We are working in collaboration with St. Peter's University, which awarded him an honorary doctorate in September of 1965.
We knew that this was part of his speaking tour, and this was all to galvanize support for the Poor People's Campaign. In Washington, D.C., where homeless people, poor people, were going to pitch tents right there in front of the Capitol or the White House and take a stand, try to force whoever the elected officials, powers that be, to do something about homelessness and hunger and unemployment in this country. I came here to hear Martin Luther King, and I'm glad I did, because as we know, he's a legendary figure in not just Black history, but world history.
We have moved through the wilderness of legal segregation, and now we stand on the border of the promised land of integration. The old order is passing away, and I'm convinced as I stand before you tonight that the system of segregation is on its deathbed, and the only thing uncertain about it is how costly the segregationists will make the funeral.
The energy was enormous. People were enthused. I mean, how can you not be, you know, with such a vibrant speaker who's touching on all the critical issues of that time, which also affects us now. I came in and the place was packed, but I was able to get in, and I stood in the back there, near the door, next to police officer Glenn D. Cunningham, who was my lifelong friend. We grew up together. So we stood back there listening.
It is just as necessary for the concerned person and the person of goodwill to condemn the intolerable conditions which continue to exist in our society, which cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative but to engage in violence in order to call attention to their problem. But after all, a riot is the language of the unheard.
I wanted to hear what he had to say. The goal here was to get people galvanized, organized, and united to march on Washington. Everybody knew leaving here, you know, to go out and spread the word and try to unite people around that particular goal. After being here and listening to Reverend King and being enthused and inspired by his speech, to only have that like dashed in a sense based on his assassination, I can remember exactly where I was.
I have some very sad news for all of you, and I think sad news for all of our fellow citizens and people who love peace all over the world. And that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
And it just gave me, and I'm sure many, many, many others, the strength and fortitude to carry on.
I didn't know how many was coming, but I figured it was going to be a lot of people, because like the March on Washington, I know it was everybody. And that day it was preachers and all kind of people was sitting over here. And standing around, they wouldn't let them come in that vestibule because it was too much. Too many people in there. They crowded in too much. They had to go around in the other building and stand. And some had to stand outside because they couldn't even get in no kind of building. When he came that day, I was working out in Bayonne. I was a shop steward out there. So I told the people, I said, I got to go early because I want to get to that church before that pastor, Reverend Martin Luther King, get there. I want to get myself a good seat so I can hear him because I know how good he is.
I'm convinced that many of the very people who supported us in the struggle in the South are not willing to go all the way now. I came to see this in a very difficult and painful way in Chicago over the last year where I've lived and worked. Some of the people who came quickly to march with us in Selma and Birmingham were active around Chicago. And I came to see that so many people who supported morally and even financially what we were doing in Birmingham and Selma were really outraged against the extremist behavior of Bull Connor and Jim Clark toward Negroes, rather than believing in genuine equality for Negroes.
Got in here and I sit down in my regular seat almost. And they rushed him in and he come on the stage and he was gone in 20 minutes, he was gone. Everybody was giving him applause. But he had to rush right on out because he's going to Memphis, to Tennessee, somewhere down there where the strikers, the garbage strikers was going on strike. And it cost him his life, it cost him his life. He was assassinated down in Memphis, Tennessee. And that was a sad time for me. I said, I want to go down there to that funeral. I want to go down there. And I was working in an electronics place. And I stayed off that day because I watched that funeral from morning to night. I watched that funeral when he's coming out of the church with him, and I watched him when he's going on to the cemetery. I wanted to get on a plane and go, but I couldn't get no seat on the plane. And plus, I don't know where I was going to get the money from. My brothers might give me some money to go, but I didn't get to go. But I stayed off all day long and watched that. Didn't go to eat nothing. Didn't eat a breakfast, didn't eat a lunch, didn't eat a dinner till that was over. I saw him. And then when I did eat, I got sick because I stayed off from eating too long. But I saw him go. It was so sad for me, it was so sad. And I thought about the time when he come to the church and everybody came to see him, white and black and all kinds of people, Jewish people and Catholic people and Gentile people and black people. And the church was so packed, there's over 2,000 people in here already. And they couldn't get in, they stopped them out there at the door. And they put them in the Price building, next building, next door. Some day in my life that I would never forget. I will never forget that day. And he kept on going. He said, keep moving, keep moving. Don't stop moving, just keep moving. If you can't run, just crawl. If you can't fly, just run. If you can't run, just walk.
If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means, keep moving.
Don't stop now, don't stop, just keep moving. That was his theme, keep moving.
This was my church, and having grown up here since Virginia Avenue to here, I felt that I had a place. And I think I may have said, I go to that church, so let me in. I go to that church. But it was an invitation to the community to come in, and that gave us a oneness. And we sat together, built this place.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
I knew the importance of being a part of the move, and the encouragement was to be there to do the part that you could do. He was encouraging us to follow, but not only just to follow, but to be supportive and to work in a oneness with other groups of people. So we waited a while. I remember the choir singing. I remember other voices, and you could see the importance on the pulpit, you know, and they were, again, advising us to do this with a purpose, you know, not just to be here for the curiosity. And we were curious, but then to get to see it, then it has now been a part of that experience. To hear him, I would say he gave an assurity, you know, if you try, do it, work together. It was a call, and that seemed to bring about that feeling that I can be a part of this and maybe I have something to offer. And very much like the preacher would say, now that you've heard the message, how are you going to carry it forth? How are you going to take it out of the church building? What are you going to do? How are you going to serve? So today, I can read a book about Dr. King. I can look at a video about Dr. King, and I can whisper to my grandchild or children and say, I had a chance to see him. Remember the phrase that he said, if you can't fly, to run. If you can't run, walk. And if you can't walk, to crawl. So I feel that we're still crawling, but at least we haven't given up the movement.
Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now.
It's like hearing about the loss of a friend. We were just having a conversation downstairs. Oh, did you hear someone just pass? And there's a shock because, well, he was just here. We just saw him. So that sort of put things in perspective, as we were saying, here today, gone today. You know, he had a lot of hopes for the sanitation workers. He had a lot of aspirations for the poor man's campaign in Washington, D.C., and it was snuffed out with a bullet. So there was a state of shock, and perhaps even the question, what are we going to do? Now what? Now what? Now who? And who has taken up the mantle to carry it out?
I was in the crowd when Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, came to Metropolitan, A.M.E. Zion Church, the Freedom Church. What an appropriate place to be. It was such a momentous occasion. I had chills. I couldn't hear everything he said because we didn't have microphones back there. But every time the crowd applauded, I just felt that I could hear what he said because it was just exuberating out on the front steps of the church. They clapped, and it just made you want to clap too. Even though you didn't hear what he said. That's the feeling you got, just being in the crowd.
Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance.
I remember him always saying, if you're a sanitation worker, if you're a custodian, do the best at what you do. Make sure you do the best as a sanitation worker, as a custodian. And I will do my best as a member of Metropolitan AME Zion Church. I still sing in the choir. Even though I didn't get in that night, I'm still in the choir. And I still sing my praises to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because he paid it all, and all to him I owe. Just to think that he came to help the sanitation workers. That's what he did best, to help. And just as fast as he came in, they whisked him away. They brought him through the back doors, and you saw him no more. And I remember him, he wasn't a big or a tall person. He was sort of on the short side, as I remember. But they always say good things come in small packages.
His impact was bigger.
Bigger than his physical being, absolutely. And he didn't have to scream or yell or holler. That's that voice that rang out through these walls. I just remember the impact of the crowd. It was chilling. I clapped, even though I didn't hear him because the crowd was clapping and roaring. It just radiated. It just was wonderful. And I could tell everybody I was there. Even though I wasn't his, I was there. I remember. How do you think you would have felt if you were there? How do you think you would have felt if you were in the crowd? How do you think you would have felt if you heard every word that he said that?
Finally, in your life's blueprint must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice.
Martin Luther King was special. He was an advocate for peace, for justice, for equality, and we had a drum major that beat the drum